although it's not far from ideal, there's nothing that replaces in person. But at least we can get together on a virtual basis and share some stories and have a few laughs with each other, because it's the best that we've got right now. But he'll never be forgotten by all of us that had the pleasure of knowing him. And I remember the very first day that I was introduced to him by our good friend, as Roy said, Sir Thomas Patrick Fleming, perfect timing, which is Tom's on the left, obviously there. I met Tom and I played golf with Tom, and I hadn't met Chappie yet, and he was down on the driving range, and he said, "Come with me, I have a treat for you today." So he took me down to the driving range and introduced me to Chappie. And like he does with everybody, he held his hand out and looked me in the eye, and just, it was as if it was my best friend right away. And he treated people like that everywhere he went. I mean, that's why the stories behind these pictures are just incredible. That was in the lobby when, and I'll tell this story now because it's good timing. I had the distinct pleasure of going to watch the Masters with Chappie and Tom, and that was actually, that picture on the screen right now is from the Masters when we were there. It was 3 years ago now, and that ice cream melted all down his hand. He was telling a story and didn't know there's a couple more pictures probably coming up now, and couldn't feel it melting. And there it is. That ice cream's melting down his hand, and Tom's laughing his ass off because Chappie's telling his story, and the ice cream's melting down his hand and dropping on the floor. It was just absolutely hilarious. But I'll tell another story a bit later on. But the first story of it being at the Masters, so we're walking around, and every 5 minutes people would, and he didn't spill that coffee. That's at the airport on the way back. We sat there just really quiet on 13 on the par 5, and I got a couple of sandwiches for us. That's at Fox Hollow, around on the golf course where I live, and we got our sandwiches and a drink, and it's really quiet. I mean, it's just absolutely the most serene, beautiful place on earth. That's in my backyard when we came over last fall, and we sat there talking, and I devoured my food. I mean, I'm an excellent eater, and I just devoured it. And everybody that knows Chappie knows that he was the slowest eater on earth. I mean, he could take 5 bites out of one peanut. He could make a meal out of one peanut, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. I think he's holding a peanut there, or 5 peanuts maybe. We just sat there, and he just if you can see me, he just very slowly looked up at me like this, and he said, "Walker, you eat like a dog." Not a pig, but a dog. And he'd taken one bite of his sandwich. That's my wife and Thomas. He'd taken one bite, and I'd finished mine, and he was so disgusted with the way that I ate my sandwich. So that's my first story. And that sandwich there that he's eating, we call them crack sandwiches. My wife makes these sandwiches, and they're just, you have one, you have to have 10. And Lisa actually sent him that's at the Masters as well. Lisa sent him home with the leftover sandwiches, and you'd have thought that she'd just given him $10 million. But anyway, so that's my story. To start with, what I'd like to do now is anybody that would like to share a story. David, would you like to share? If you would you like to talk for a minute? I think what you're going to have to do, Rachel, keep me straight here, but whoever wants to talk, they have to take themselves off mute now. Is that correct? So David Chapman, would you like to? I didn't see your name up on the screen there because there's a lot of people, didn't see. But are you? Obviously, you're on. Can you take yourself off mute and say a few words?
Yeah, it was wonderful, Richard. I'm laughing the whole time. I got tears in my eyes, not from grief, but from laughter. You certainly had Bud pegged pretty well in regards to his eating habits. I have a funny story about that too. With the ice cream cone, I had just completely restored my old Porsche, and the interior was all beautiful, new leather interior. And I went and picked him up at the golf club, and they had like a buffet outside on the front patio, and his fingers, from eating chicken wings and this and that and everything. I mean, absolute mess. And I said, Dad, you're not getting in my car until you clean your hands off. Okay, at least grab some napkins, clean your hands off. So I said, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that for you. So he cleans his hands off and everything. And I start walking to my car, and I get to the car, and I go to open the car door for Bud. And here he's holding this huge, delicious, moist chunk of chocolate cake, could have been like a 4-inch square with big frosting on it, in his hand. And he's going to get in my car with that big chocolate cake. I said, you're not getting in my car with that cake. You're going to have to eat it and finish it here. And we'll have to go back and sit on the deck because it's going to take you an hour, or you're just going to have to put it away. Like, I convinced him to let go of the cake, and I threw it away. Yeah, that's how he was. He just was just such a character in regards to wasn't even thinking about the mess of that chocolate cake and bringing it into my car. But so that's on the eating portion of it, and how he could be such a character. And the other thing is that you're right about Bud. Whenever he met people, he really treated everybody like they were his new best friend, and always treated everybody with dignity. And if I have gained anything in my life worth anything, I would say that if I could treat people the way my dad treated people, and treat everyone with dignity, that would be one of the greatest attributes that I could have picked up from him. I got a little bit of his artistic ability, but I'm still working on the golfing aspect of it. I haven't quite figured that one out, but I'm starting to try a little harder right now. I've been at the driving range a few times this week, and I'm going to see if I can improve my game just in Bud's memory. I don't know what else I could really share about Dad. I almost enjoy hearing stories from other people, because these are stories that I've never heard. One guy posted on the Facebook page when I wanted people to make comments on it, and he had posted back in the 70s, they had a blue tea event at Hazeltine. It was in late September. He said it was low 50 degrees, 52 degrees. He said a stiff north wind. And the third place finisher had an 87. The second place finisher had an 84, and Bud Chapman had a 68. And I never heard anything about it before that. So it was pretty phenomenal how he could turn it up at times and really shoot the lights out golf. And I was fortunate enough being a kid caddying for him and being able to see him shoot some of those low rounds. It was just kind of expected, and it was really enjoyable. And I guess I didn't realize at that time how difficult that was to be able to play that high quality of golf. But I've sure learned on the links by myself, knowing how difficult it is. But you can move me in. You can turn on somebody else and have them share their stories, and maybe I'll come back a little later if I can think of something. But I'd like to just back and listen.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you sharing. I love that picture there. I mean, that's one of my favorites. It's just fantastic. Obviously, it's at MGC. But as you look at these pictures that are unfolding, I mean, the stories behind every single one of these pictures is incredible. And obviously, we can't all relate to that picture, for example, but the people in it can. And those are the memories that all of us will take forever. Why don't I'll invite Doc Gill, because Doc Gill no doubt played more golf with Chappie in his later years than anybody on the planet. And I was very fortunate to play many rounds with Doc Gill and Chappie. So Doc, why don't you unmute yourself and share as many stories as you like, because I know you've got many of them, my friend.
I'd be happy to. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, I treasure my rounds with Bud. He again taught me one heck of a lot, and I just was always in amazement of his attitude. He just had such a positive attitude, and I was amazed at his longevity and his pep and his just love for life. I think one of the first times I played with him, it was a lot of this was revealed to me. It was a Monday. The club was closed, but there was no outside event. So I showed up after work, and I was, and then sure enough, Bud was there, and so we played a twosome, and Bud had this this unbelievable sense of play, the sense of play of about an 11 or a 12-year-old, and I think that was part of his longevity secret. But every shot, every hole, like a sixth grader, Bud is saying, "Okay, this shot, this putt is for." It's Sunday at the Masters. This is to win everything, or we're playing for the championship of the fifth dimension, or the eighth universe, or whatever. I mean, he and nobody ever enjoyed sinking a 5-foot putt as much as Bud. But that Monday afternoon, we were playing together, and we were having a great time. And then we bumped into a foursome on the 10th tee, and this is when his wife is still alive, and he had to get back and take care of her. He didn't have a lot of time to play 18 or wait for these people. So he said, well, let's just play a few more holes, and we'll play a little cross-country golf. We'll make up a few holes. So we'll tee up here. We'll tee up from the 9th green. We'll go over to the 11th green. It's par 3.5. And so we played like that, cross-country golf. Bud was making up holes as we went, demonstrating his imagination. And I was just cracking up. But it just kind of gives you a sense of who he was and what he meant to us all. And of course, is the quote that I remember so often from him and quoted to so many people is the one that Patrick Royce mentioned. Those of you who know me know that I can be too damn quick with my backswing, with everything when it comes to golf. And especially if I was Bud's partner and I was not playing as well because of that quickness, Bud would kind of look at me and say, Bob, take time to enjoy the swing. And that would kind of smooth me out. And it's a good philosophy to have. So he just, Cynthia Leaf and I were always in amazement. She had a medical background in biochemistry and I with my medical career. We couldn't figure out what the hell was Bud's secret, other than he had good genes, but I just think he enjoyed life so much and he had such a good attitude, and he continued to have that sense of play till the very end. And I think that explains some of it. But we all enjoyed playing with him, and I feel his presence still out there at MGC. Once in a while, he's helping my ball go down the middle, and I appreciate it. But I don't want to go on and bore you too much. But I miss him, but I certainly feel honored to have known him and played with him, and just enjoyed his company and his philosophy.
Well, I must not be watching when I'm teeing off, because I still find myself in the woods all the time. So I'll have to let him know when it is that I'm playing, so he can help me go more down the middle. You mentioned the word secret. Yeah, I got to tell you, it reminds me of a quick story. This was last year, it was just last year, I think it was, and he finished his round, and he's on his card. Oh, Chappie, what are those notes on your card? And he's got copious notes on his card. And for those that have played with him, knew that he must have had thousands of cards with notes on them. There's something that he was trying to do different. I said, Chappie, what are those notes? He said, I'm trying to find the secret. I said, Chappie, you're 96, man. You haven't found it now. You're not going to find it. And he just burst out laughing. God, he made me laugh. He really did. All right, so let's do this then. If anybody else, we'll just kind of do a first come, first serve. And of course, not everybody has to speak. I know a lot of people just want to listen.
Richard, I have one sequel to your secret story.
Yeah, please do.
I think I've told you, but for the other people. So yeah, he did do exactly what you said, and he would bring out 3 or 4 scorecards every round, and he would fill them all up by the end of 18 holes with the secrets, multiple secrets. And so last year in the fall, I think he was having a little slump, which we all do. And he turned to me in all seriousness and all sincerity, and he said, Bob, I have a million secrets, but I don't have any backups, he said. That cracked me up. How could you do
that? And no doubt he said it with sincerity.
He did. He wasn't trying to be sarcastic.
No. He's just, I just would love to have spent about 5 minutes in his mind, because he's just so incredibly creative, and especially when he got into telling his stories. And I have a wonderful video clip that I took when we're in the hotel room. I enjoyed the hotel room time and off the golf course, as when we went to the Masters, as much as I did actually at the Masters. And he would just, we'd ask him a question, just one question, and boom, he could just talk for an hour about going out and panning for gold and his oil stuff, and it just entertaining. And then he got into talking about the golf swing and talking about the length of the clubs. You remember this whole club length thing. And so I have videos. I said, that's incredible. I got a video of this thing, and I'll never forget it. I'll never lose it, because it's about 2 minutes long of his philosophy on the swing as it relates to the length of the club. It's just mind-boggling. Well, let's do this then. So if whoever would like to go, if you want to take yourself off mute now, I think if you go to the, I just screwed something up. Yeah, I did. Yeah, so if you, hang on a second, because I just lost my visual. Okay, so if you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see there's something called reactions there. And if you would like to share a few words, you can either, do you see on mine there's a little thumbs up on my screen now? Let's try that. If you'd like to do that, just do a quick thumbs up, because it goes away. Then you'll be able to, and then unmute yourself. And if you can't unmute yourself for some reason, and you'd like to, okay, Dave would like to speak, that's wonderful. Okay, great. Let's do that then. If you can't unmute yourself, Rachel will help you do that. So Dave, let's invite you to share your thoughts.
So I know you guys are all, heavy on the golf side, but the artist of Bud was, I was talking to Gary Nash, who was a longtime Finger Hut employee, just before the Zoom meeting today, and he was sorry to hear of his passing, and he described, anytime we had anything difficult at Finger Hut that was like viewed the impossible, we always called Bud Chapman in. And so I think there's other photo retouchers, obviously, in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, but Bud had the distinction of being the best. And one time I remember, and I was recounting this, being at the old Chapman Studios office, Bud showed me, it was probably, David would remember, an 8x10, what I'll call a positive. And right next to it was a corn cob or a sweet corn, a tomato, and various vegetables on a tray or something. And right next to it was a photograph, or his painting. I'm sorry, there was a photo in his painting. And his photorealism was so good. I looked at it honestly for 10 minutes, and I couldn't tell the difference. And to have all those gifts of physical ability with golf, which is a difficult game to get down, for sure, but to have that critical of an eye, I was in awe of the man that way. So that's all I've got.
Well, thank you for sharing. I went back to his studio, I don't know, a few years ago, and he's shown me his artwork. And then he got a magnifying glass out. I took a picture through the magnifying glass. The detail, I can't draw a stick man, but the incredible patience that Chappie had, I just wish I had 1 ounce of his patience, because what he was able to create, and obviously I haven't seen all of his artwork, and I would love to see more of it. It was absolutely, truly incredible. The detail, I don't know how to put it any differently. It was his imagination, and the ability to put his imagination in the art form was truly, truly incredible. It was something I just couldn't get my head around, and I'm not sure what was more impressive, his artistic ability or his golfing ability. It was just incredible. Anyway, who else would like to share a story?
I would. Can you hear me?
Hey, Don, is that you?
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, how you doing, mate? Yes, please do.
I'm Don McNeil. played a lot of golf with Bud the last few years. But going on to what Dave said about, he and I had this art connection also. That was my field. And we would talk about art more than we would talk about golf. And he was certainly a tremendously talented artist. I mean, his ability to create or to make what he wanted to was amazing. But the thing that I'm struck with by the artwork that he produced on his own, like the golf holes, is he had to come up with those ideas. He had to, before he could paint them, he had to think them. Even taking the subjects of national parks or monuments or places of recognition, the canyons of New York or whatever, but then to take that and create these golf holes. I mean, that kind of imagination and creativity is what makes an artist, to be able to do that. To create something that is new and unique. And to me, that was what made him such a great artist.
Thank you, Don. Speaking of art and golf combined, I mean, obviously his infamous 18 is can yeah. And it was somebody trying to say something. Okay.
Hello.
Hello. Who is that?
Richard?
Yeah.
Dan Endy.
Oh, there he is, Daniel Endy.
Live in color?
You'll be proud of me. I had an eagle putt yesterday, and I didn't leave it short. You'll be proud of me.
Well, I haven't left one short all year.
That's wonderful. Well, would you like to share some of your thoughts, please, Mr. Endy?
My story is somewhat unfulfilled, and it's frustrating. Last fall, Bud invited me over to his studio, and he wanted to share with me his latest painting. And that was Donald Trump on Mount Rushmore. And it was exquisite. It had all the little details for which Bud is famous, including shots or paintings of his wife and his family in the foreground, also, being involved in the situation. And he had written up a whole bunch of stuff. And I say that not disrespectfully, because it didn't make much sense. And it was secrets he was going to share with Trump to save the country. And finally I said, listen, Bud, you're an artist. You're not an author. If you send this thing to Trump, he'll have you at Mar-a-Lago in a New York minute. Well, unfortunately, it never happened. And my very last conversation with Bud on the practice range was, it was concurrent with Trump being out at Rushmore. And I said, Bud, have you finished the painting? Here's a chance, get it out there. Well, nothing happened. And I guess David can fill you in on something, but I thought it would be an excellent idea to promote this for the family, in that this was Bud's last stand. And I hope that it does get marketed so that maybe the family can make a couple of bucks on it, and we all remember Bud for the wonderful guy that he was.
Thank you, Daniel. That is very nice. I'd love to see that painting. So, David, are you going to finish it for him? So he didn't finish it then, Dano? Is that true?
Actually, it is finished.
It is.
And you really can't market or promote or sell anything that has Trump's name or his image on it without their blessing. And so it's actually in the hands of the people who are the campaign merchandise chairman for the Trump campaign. And they're looking it over and reviewing it right now, and they want to see what they can do with it. So we actually have it in the right hands and the right eyes. And I think that Trump has probably even seen it at this point.
Oh, I'm shocked he hasn't already got it on his own bedroom wall.
Well, I gotta go print them up first.
That's wonderful. Oh, all right. Well, thank you. Well, I'll share another quick story here in between, and then if you would like to, as I share a quick story here, if you'd like to do again at the bottom of the screen on the reactions, just do one of these thumbs up if you'd like to share a few words. Please do, and then we can see who would like to as well. So if you want to do that now, if you can figure that out, just go down your screen, scroll your mouse down there. It says reactions. And Ron, okay, wonderful, Ron. I'll share a quick story, and then my buddy Ronald Ames, who I have to thank because he was really the one that gave us the opportunity to go to the Masters. I've known Ronald for a long time, and he's very nice to let us use his badges. They're actually his badges. And so it was really Ron that enabled us to be able to go to the Masters. But a quick short story I'd like to share that had started is regarding combining golf with his artistic ability. When we put a golf simulator in our office, as you do, we looked at all the list of the courses that we could play, and I was shocked, very pleasantly surprised to see that Chappie's infamous 18 was in the simulator. Absolutely incredible. And in wintertime, we have way too much fun in there, playing on his infamous 18. It's fantastic if you haven't seen it, because there's a flyover function, so you can see his artwork in real life and actually play golf on the holes that he designed and painted. You can also chop and change, have a par 3 course, you can have shorter tees. So we have so much fun on there. But we had an event, Doc, you remember this a couple of years ago, where Chappie just got back from Florida, and we brought him to the office, and a bunch of guys came up from the golf club, and we have a lot of young ladies in the office. So we brought him, and to watch him play golf on the golf course that he created and painted, and he's playing golf on his own golf course, was just absolutely incredible. And Doc, I want you to chirp in for a second, because I know you've got a couple of thoughts on this subject with you physically being there. But one of the funny one-liners that came out of that is, after we couldn't get him out. I think he would have been there still now. I mean, he was the last one in there. I'm not kidding. He was just played all day and all night. We couldn't get him out, could we, Doc? He just wouldn't leave. But after a year, I don't know, we played again and again and again. And he just turned around to Thomas Patrick Fleming and myself very slowly, and he said, "This golf course is too hard to play." And Thomas said, "Well, you designed the damn thing, man. It's your own fault." Go ahead, Doc. You're on mute, Doc. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now? Better?
Yep, gotcha.
Yeah, Bud was like a pig in mud that day. He just thoroughly enjoyed it. He was enthralled, and we had a grand old time. And I remember I could barely get in there to hit because he was having so much fun. But on the Victoria Falls hole, I was ready to hit my shot, and Richard said, "You don't have enough club, man." And I said, "But it's downhill." He said, "I don't care." So I changed to a 5-iron, I think, and I put it right in the green. So I'm 1 for 1 on Victoria Falls. I'm never doing that again, because it'll never happen again. But he had a great time. And there were a lot of young women there in their 20s that worked for Richard. And this is a true story. They were asking for Bud's phone number. I know he has a twinkle in his eye, but this is ridiculous. And Bud would say, "Oh, no, I'm too busy. I'm too busy."
That is absolutely true. They were asking for his phone number. They wanted to take him out to lunch. I mean, it was just like, it was a magnet, absolute magnet. And these young ladies had no idea who he was, didn't even know that, that he had anything to do with the golf course that we're playing on. It was just the man that they were enthralled by. They just absolutely loved him. But he would have been there all night, Doc, if you hadn't been able to drag him out. Okay, Ronald Ames, my friend in Dallas, Texas, would like to share a few words. Thanks for joining, Ron.
Well, thank you for the invite, Whack. Just a couple things that I remember. The first time I met Chappie was in our little sports bar in Columbia that we always go to. You and I kind of found that thing in a little ways from the hotel. And I remember walking in, and I had brought one of the young lads that lived next door to me here. He's in his about 30 years old. And we had gone Thursday and Friday, and then you guys were going to go Saturday, Sunday. So we had to come in and hook up and pass along the badges. Well, I'm walking in, and here's this fellow with a black leather hat on, and he's kind of sitting back there, and you introduced me to him for the first time. And while we're sitting there, he didn't, the thing about him is he wasn't like full of himself. I mean, you had to say things about the kind of accomplishments that he had, and Tom said some things about the accomplishments he had, and my young fellow neighbor that was with me, his eyes just got, he loves golf, but his eyes just got so big, and I was it was unbelievable the things that I heard about what he had accomplished in his life. And then recently, after his passing, when the paper, I think Rachel put something out that listed all the different things that he had accomplished. It was unbelievable. But what a just a true gentleman, and I was so happy that we were able to offer him the opportunity to attend the Masters, and I really enjoyed his company. And along with the food story, obviously Whack finished his food at the bar much faster than anybody else. I mean, he's a Brit. He goes through promoting the cheese sandwiches at the Masters like 4 while I have 1. But anyway, Whack got done, and then I think maybe Kirk got done, and then Tom and I might have got done, and then we looked over at Chappie and we figured, well, he might be able to be done before he heads to the Masters on Saturday morning. But I really enjoyed meeting him. And the thing that is it's right up in my golf room, full center, front and center right now. I'm so proud to have his book, and he personalized it to me. And I thank you so much for that.
And on that note, I appreciate that. And David was very, very nice to help coordinate this. But we have a little tournament. Roy Brammy, you see, a lot of you know Roy, that's on the screen now. We have a little tournament against the Windsong guys every year. And last year, when Chappie gave me the book that he'd done and wrote a really nice note in there, it was really, really nice. And then David asked him, so he personalized probably 60 of those books for us, personalized every single one. And thank you, David, for that, because that's a very, very special book to every single person that has it. And to have it personalized by him is something that everybody will treasure for the rest of their lives. So can't thank you enough for that. Okay, well, would anybody else
it's in a very special place in my golf room. And as you know, Wack, there are a few things in my golf room that are pretty special. So I cherish that very much, and thanks for getting that done for me.
All right, thank you, Ronald. Okay, would anybody else like to share a few words?
Yeah, this is Ron Sanders. I'd like to share some words. My life with him has been so spectacular that I don't know if I can hold it down to 5 or 10 minutes. But I'll start where we first met, and that was when I first put together the US West Classic, which was the predecessor to the 3M Championship, quite frankly. And Bud was my first celebrity. We got to know each other. I have all kinds of pictures from him. I know David's smiling as we talk about it. He was coupled up with the State Senior Open, and that was the format we had. And the last year in 1989, that it was the US West Classic, Bud got to meet Lee Trevino, and Lee gave him a lesson. And as all of us who know Bud know, he was always looking for the next good thing. And Lee gave him some tips on how to get out of the sand trap. And the next day in the final round, Bud won the State Senior Open that year. I'm going to show you a couple things just as examples. This was the actual bid that went into the Senior PGA Tour in 1989. And if you look at the cover, it was done by Bud Chapman. He's actually did the cover for my Senior Tour bid. When we had the event and we had Lee Trevino come in. The invitations that went to my guests were Lee Trevino's famous hole, which is part of the dream holes, which is a fade because Lee always hits it to the right. He also did Ben Crenshaw, and I guess one other. I'm getting old too. One year he even did the presidents of all the U.S. West subsidiaries. I'm going to take you on to the one particularly unique thing. I got a couple more stories. We traveled a lot together. We went to Colorado together. We went to Denver together. There was a series of golf tournaments called the Gunther Haar Series. We played together in that in Des Moines. We played in that in Iowa. In Des Moines, we were playing there, and I was not playing with him, but I was on the 18th hole. I was in a sand trap, and Bud was up next to the wall. And I sculled it out of the sand trap, bounced it off the building, and Bud said, "Well, my God, who is that?" He said, "Oh my God, it's Ron." So that's a Ron story. But as somebody else indicated, every time you play golf with Bud, he gets you the first tee. And he says, "Now, what's the finest round of golf you've ever played?" And I'd say, he says, "Well, let's beat that by 2 shots today." And that was the way you started a round of golf. The most famous time that I took him to Indianapolis, because I got involved with IndyCar racing. And he was blown away by the Indianapolis 500. We were lucky enough to win with Ari Lyondike, which was the 1997 Indy 500 champion. But if this is a particular original that I have from Bud, but it's got all of the right ending cars of the tournament. I'm in it, and our Sprint PCS car is there. I don't know. I just have. I don't know. I love them. Thank you very much for an opportunity to be here.
Your passion is overwhelming. Truly, thank you. Nice story.
If I could say a
please
few
do.
words.
Yes, please do.
I'm Tori James, and I was married to Ole for 17 years. Here, he was Bud's right hand, along with his kids. Bud just had so many funny stories. Like every night, Jim would come home, or Ole would come home at the dinner table, and he'd say these really funny Budisms. So I wish I had the notebook, but Jim actually kept a notebook of all the funny isms that Bud would talk about, and that always made us all laugh. And another funny thing was when Ellen was little, our daughter, who's now 24, she would spend school release days at Chapman Studios. So Jim had set her up with a little baby table, and we'd get all her art supplies. So she'd sit right along Bud and, work on her art. And I remember specifically one time I was visiting the studio, and Bud says to Ellen, "Hey, Ellen, I think there's something missing in this artwork. I don't know if it was for the Honeywell, or I can't remember what poster he was making it for, but here it is. My little 4-year-old was able to tell Bud what to put in his photo that was missing for that big print that he was making." And then another funny story Jim told us, he used to caretake their house in St. Louis Park when they were in Florida. And Jim was over one time, and Bud Mitzi had a huge bed, a king size bed, and a bunch of dogs. And Jim said that Bud and Mitzi would eat popcorn, and they'd be feeding the dogs popcorn and then feeding themselves. So after the dogs all slobbered on Bud's hand, there went the same hand into Bud's mouth with the popcorn, and he just couldn't believe it.
And he didn't care.
He didn't care.
So great.
Yeah. So I
That's-
know Oli, I think Bud had a special place in Oli's heart. I think, you know, he was like a second father to Oli, and I know that, those two are together and yucking it up and having a good time wherever they are. So I just wanted to share that.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Tara. It's very nice of you. Anybody else have a story they'd like to share?
I'd like to add just a little to mine. Maybe Joe Stansberry will jump in and add this, but we're working up here in Baxter now with the CRMC Championship, which will be the second PGA Tour event. And when I first started it back in 2017, Chappie was the first celebrity that I taught. He's the first guy I went to. He started the US West Classic with me. And I said, you know what, Chappie? The Masters has an honorary starter. Would you please be my honorary starter? And he was our honorary starter for the last 2 years, you know, at age 95, 96. And we were all set to do it again here in 2020 when the virus canceled our tournament. But yeah, and again, Stansberry might be able to add something to that. Come on, Joe.
You're on mute, Joe. Still on mute, Joe.
Am I unmuted now?
You're good.
Hey, all right. My name is Joe Stansberry. I'm 64 and a half, almost 65, and I started playing with Bud. And I believe, David, I was trying to figure it out. I think I was 16 or 17 years old at Hiawatha back in the day. And I was blessed. I'm going to just share a very simple story, but it was my last round of golf with him. And in particular, the very last hole I played with Bud. You know, and Bud was always, like you said, everybody knows he was searching for the secret. And he was always asking me, how do you hit it so long? You're not very big, you know, and he talks with his hands. And so on the 18th hole, this was early March, maybe late February. So he probably only played a half a dozen rounds after that. We get to the 18th hole. And there was this lady, and he's at Seminole Lakes, and there's this older lady, and she's trying to move these bags of dirt. And I go, hey, here, Bud. He goes, well, what are you doing? And I handed him my driver, and he goes, well, do you mind if I try it? I go, no, go right ahead. And, you know, maybe that's the secret. We were laughing, and I went over and helped this lady to move the bags. And I came back, and Bud and I were sharing the cart, and I just assumed my driver ended up in my bag. No, we had been mixing up clubs all day long. Well, to make a long story short, a week later after this COVID hit, I was going to go play in Florida and I didn't have my driver. And I go, oh my God, where is it? And I went back and I called the pro at Seminole Lakes, and the pro goes, well, yeah, I just found your Bobby Jones driver like an hour ago. It was sitting on the driving range. Well, this was a week later. So I'm sure Bud saw this driver in his bag. He goes, well, I don't know whose this is. And he just left it on the driving range. and oh my God, I just, you know, like just so typical Bud. And, you know, I mean, that's just one of thousands of Budisms that, you know, we've all heard and, you know, but oh my God. Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
What a great story. I have to share one more story before I forget, because this one, it's a story that it's really hard to relate to unless you were. I wish I had this conversation recorded. It goes back to our Masters trip again. So he was down in Florida, and Tom Fleming and I were going to go meet with him down in Columbia, South Carolina, at the airport. And I'm on his landline. And Doc Gill, you know the story. You just cannot make this shit up. You really can't. So I said, he's on his line. I said, Chappie, you got a cell phone? I'll call you when we land. He said, yeah. I said, what's your number? I can't remember. I said, no problem. I'll give you my number. write this number down, Chappie. And then, when you've got, and then when you write this number down, call me back and I'll have your number in my caller ID. He says, well, what's a caller ID? I said, don't worry about it, Chappie. Just take this number down, call me, then I've got your number. Oh, that's a great idea. So I say 612, you can follow me now. 612, he says 612. I said 382. He says 382. 7105. He says 7109. I said, very close, very exciting, but it's a 5, Chappie. He says 9, 5, 9. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. In my infinite brilliance, I came up with a great idea. I'm going to count, and when I stop, I want you to write that number down. Great idea, great idea. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He says, are you not going to keep going? And then we both burst out laughing. They said, oh, it's a 5. It's a 5. And then I called him and he didn't pick up. I'll never, ever forget that as long as I live. All right, I'm done with my story. I've got so many like most of you do, and I don't want to take up too much of everybody's time because I said we'd finish at 6, so I want to get a couple more stories in. So has anybody not shared a story that they would like to? Cynthia.
I've got a quick one. Just
Wonderful.
One day I was hitting balls at MGC driving range, and Bud comes over to me very excited, and he's got this newspaper clipping, and he said, here, they found it, the secret. They're doing a study and they found something that stops aging, and you've got to do this, and you've got to make a company and make this. And I said, okay, but I'll look into it. And he wouldn't leave me alone so I could hit balls and warm up. He said, you've got to do this. I said, okay, I will. And I went home and I looked it up on the computer, and I found some things out about this factor that was they discovered in mice. And I came back to him the next time and I said, well, he wanted them to inject it into him so he would live forever. And I said, but Bud, you already have this. If we measured this in your blood, it would be higher than just about anybody else. So yeah, his joy, and he wanted to live forever, and I wish he had. I miss him.
I think we all thought he would. I mean, it was a shock to us all because I thought he would live forever. I mean, I couldn't wait to get back out there and play with him. I saw his name on the tee sheet a couple of times with Doc. I went out there, and both times, is Chappie here? No, both times. So yeah. We're not going. This is not going to be sad. This is a celebration. So I hear you. That's a nice story, Cynthia. Okay, time for a couple more. Would anybody else like to share something?
Can you get me?
I can't see who that is. Who's that?
Hello?
Yep, we can hear. Who is that?
This is Joe Mortensen.
Joe, would you like to introduce yourself? That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Jennifer Chapman's partner. We've been together for 12 years, and Jen is Bud's daughter. So we're out here in San Diego. And, I could tell a lot of funny stories. I mean, of course, Bud came to our house many times, and, I thought of myself as a pretty decent golfer. And so Jen tells me when I first started dating her, she was like, my dad plays golf. And I'm thinking, how old is your dad? And he's like, I think at this time he was like, in his 80s. And I'm thinking, well, I could probably tow him around. And I didn't know anything about her father, not anything, and we go out and play golf, and, you get on the tee and right down the middle, bam. I'm like, who is this guy? And I'm thinking, I can take this guy. And all of a sudden, the end of the day, nope, didn't beat him. Play him again, nope, didn't beat him. So year after year, I'm thinking, I'm out there practicing hitting, finally my score's going from 90 down to the 80s. And finally I'm breaking 70, and I'm thinking, I'm going to kill this guy, So one day we're playing, and it's stormy, and the winds in San Diego, we don't get normally big storms like you do out in the Midwest. But this one day it was, we had a torrential downpour, and the winds were probably 30, 40 miles an hour. And Jen goes, you're not taking my dad out to play golf. I said, oh yeah, we're going, of course we are. So Bud and I get on the golf course and we're playing with my buddy John, and you know, we're about 7, 8, 9 holes into it, and all of a sudden you start to see all the carts coming in. I mean, it's just the wind's blowing horizontally, and all of a sudden I look and there's Bud and the umbrella's up this way, and I'm like, Bud, and the umbrella's like going halfway down the course, and Bud doesn't have any idea, and he's just hitting it away, and I'm thinking, and you know, and my buddy John, you know, he never quits, and this is the first time he's like, I'm going in, I'm quitting. And I said, do you see who's in that golf cart? That man's like 90. He's not quitting. I said, we're not quitting. We're going all the way in. And I look at Bud, and Bud didn't hear me say this to John. I said, Bud, how you doing? What, you still want to quit? Bud's like, no, it's not too bad. Let's keep going. And it's just pouring and coming down. I mean, and there's not a soul on the golf course. Of course, when I got home, everybody's drenched. Of course, Jen gave me a tongue lashing. What are you doing to my father? I'm like, he had a good time, you know? So my last story is when my last round of golf, of course, David, Greg, and Bud and I actually had the chance to play Hazeltine. And boy, what a gem that was. And here I am going to, you know, and Jen's telling me, you know, your dad's going to get you at the Minneapolis Country Club. And unfortunately, we couldn't play there. But I kept saying, hey, yeah, I'd love to play Hazeltine. And we got onto Hazeltine. And Bud's like 96, 97. And I'm thinking, I'm going to kill this guy. He's 97. I got to beat him now. And I think I just shot like a 78. And I'm, you know, of course, I'm feeling high and mighty of myself, you know, and there's Bud Chapman, you know, right down the middle, you know, right. And I'm like talking to Greg and David. I'm like, I can't ever beat this guy. Now, I think I beat him on 9 holes one time or 9 holes on the other, but that's not how golf works. You got to play 18. And I got to say, in 12 or 13 years that I knew Bud, I never beat him. And boy, but I can always say, you know, the last round of golf was at Hazeltine, and I was very blessed. What a glorious place to play with Bud and his kids. And we had a wonderful time out there in Minnesota, and it was just a really, really nice time. But that's kind of my funny story about Bud. So I think maybe Jen wants to say a few words.
That's a wonderful story. Thank you. Jen? Are you on mute? I think you're still on mute. We can hear background, but we can't hear your voice. We have technical issues. You know, while you're figuring out the technical issues, I'll just tell a very quick story then. And if you're able to come in, well, then I'll cut my story off while you're trying to figure out your audio. Similar kind of story to Joe. We're playing at Oak Ridge a couple of years ago, Doc Gill against Chappie and Tom Fleming. And I wasn't playing very well. And front 9, we get to 9, and I did have to make a birdie on number 9. And Chappie says, that was a great birdie, Walker, fantastic birdie. I said, Chappie, what's your score right now? He said, oh, I don't know. And so Doc Gill, he looks at his score, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I guess I'm even. I said, Chappie, seriously, man, you're kicking my ass. And the next thing I said, and this makes me want to cry now, but I said, Chappie, you're kicking my ass and you should be dead. Just shut up, would you? And he just laughed and laughed and laughed. Oh, God, it was so funny. Oh, we've got all kinds of things going on the screen. I don't know whether you guys can see it or not. Jen, were you able to get yourself off mute? Doesn't sound like it.
Hey, Wack, I got a bunch of weird stuff on my screen.
Yeah, I think it's because
everybody.
Yeah, I think it's because Rachel, she had to log off at 6 o'clock. So
someone's sharing their screen.
Oh.
Let me see if I can get them off.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, somebody must be doing it by accident. Yeah. Well, it's at 6 o'clock now anyway, and we said we're going to do this for an hour. So, David or anybody else from the Chapman family, would you like to offer a few closing words for our little get together? Yeah, who is that?
I think Jen wants to say a few words.
Oh, wonderful, good.
I had it set up in the other room, but
okay.
The gentleman that was speaking, and everybody, the stories are wonderful. Thank you. About the painting, that one was a photograph and one was the original, and you can't see it very well up, probably. But he was talking about how he couldn't believe that one was an original painting, the other was a photograph.
That's the one.
In his retouching days. Yeah, Dave.
Yep, that's the one.
That's the one you were looking at. And I want to show you two other paintings of Dad. In my father's early years, he did his own paintings here. He did it, and his head's coming out of a golf hole in his younger years. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, the guy's hilarious.
And then he really loved Salvador Dali, and he did his painting in a Salvador Dali style here, where he was a young man. His self-portraits.
Oh, that's incredible.
They're really wonderful, and it's just, of course, you can imagine what a fun dad he was. The greatest dad in the world.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah.
I've got so many stories, we all do, but he really was Peter Pan, and he was supposed to live forever. So it's hard, for sure.
Yeah, and he will. He'll live forever in our thoughts. I mean, nobody's ever going to forget that man. Every time I step foot on Minneapolis Golf Club, like Doc Gill said, he's there. I mean, you can just feel his presence. It's just, he was an incredible human being for many, many different reasons. David, would you like to share a few words? I know that you said you prefer to listen, but if you'd like to say a few words before we'll clock off and head off for the weekend.
Well, it is really wonderful that you and Rachel pulled this all together for all of his friends and family, and I can't thank you enough, Richard, for doing this. It's really kind of a special event. And I've been laughing. I've had tears in my eyes. It's just really a wonderful tribute. And somewhere down the road, when this virus cloud lifts, I hope to have a celebration of his life at the Minneapolis Golf Club, and maybe we can sprinkle some of his ashes over on the 10th hole, which I think he would love to be part of the hole forever. And I just say, I just can't thank you enough. Really, really wonderful tribute for all the things that everybody shared here. And we really could go on all day with all the Budisms and the stories, because I have a million of them, and we can all share those together in the future. And,
yes, we can.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate everybody taking time out to celebrate this wonderful man's life. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Whack.
You're welcome, mate. Take care.
Cheers.